Think about the moment you get home today. You walk up to your front door, maybe you're juggling a bag of groceries or your mail, you slide the key into the lock and you turn it.
Yeah, that satisfying click.
Exactly. You hear that heavy click, you push the door open, and you step inside. And in that exact fraction of a second, you instantly feel safe.
Right.
But I want to ask you a really simple question. When you turn that key, how much security did you actually just buy? Because we all tend to think of a lock as this impenetrable, magical barrier.
It's metal, so we think it's secure.
Right. It's metal, it's bolted to wood, therefore we are completely protected. But today, we're going to look at why a cheap piece of hardware from your local store, or calling that supposedly cheap $15 locksmith you found on Google, could eventually end up costing you hundreds or even thousands of dollars.
Oh, absolutely.
But before we get into that, this deep dive is brought to you by Point Locksmith. If you want a 5-star rated experience, call them at 310-295-4040. They are fast, reliable, professional locksmiths serving all of Los Angeles. From emergency lockouts to rekeying, smart locks, and car key replacements, they're available 24/7 to keep your home, business, and vehicle secure.
A good pro is essential.
They really are. Okay, let's unpack this. We have a massive stack of materials for this deep dive. I've been poring over actual locksmith training manuals, some wild undercover investigative reports, industry market research projecting into 2025, and some incredibly detailed tech reviews on the latest smart locks.
It's quite the reading list.
It is. And our mission today is to explore the hidden dangers of those basic budget-friendly locks, uncover a massive, highly coordinated fake locksmith scam that preys on people right when they're most vulnerable, and show you exactly why investing in quality security hardware is the ultimate way to save money.
It really is a fascinating topic. When we talk about home security, we have to realize that it isn't just about the physical metal on your door.
What do you mean?
Well, it's about the broader implications of vulnerability. It's about your peace of mind. And most importantly, it's about the true return on investment, or ROI, of preventative safety.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, a lock is essentially an investment in risk mitigation. When you buy cheap hardware or when you hire unverified labor, you're absorbing a tremendous amount of unseen risk that you probably don't even know you're carrying.
And that's exactly what I want to start with, the illusion of the physical metal. Because if I go to the big box hardware store right now and buy a standard off-the-shelf deadbolt for maybe $12 or $20, it feels heavy.
Yeah, feels solid.
It feels solid in my hand. But I was looking at these locksmith training manuals, and they basically say these cheap locks are an illusion. So how is a criminal actually bypassing that solid piece of metal?
To understand that, you have to look inside the cylinder. A standard lock operates using pins of varying heights. When you insert the correct key, the specific ridges on your key push those internal pins up perfectly so they all align at a microscopic gap called the shear line.
The shear line.
Right. Once every single pin hits that exact line, the cylinder is free to turn and the door opens. The problem with a basic, cheap lock is twofold. First, the manufacturing tolerances are incredibly loose.
Meaning they're just sloppily made.
Exactly. And second, if the cuts on a key don't vary enough in depth, it makes the lock incredibly vulnerable. The manuals show that with those cheap locks, a criminal doesn't even need a specialized tool.
Really?
No, a simple knife blade or a thin, straight instrument can easily be wiggled in there to lift those basic tumblers right to the shear line.
Wait, let me stop you there, because the manuals also mention locks being susceptible to picking, bumping, and forced entry. Picking and forced entry makes sense to me, but for someone listening who has no idea what that is, how does a bump key actually work?
That is a great question. Bumping is a technique that exploits the basic physics of those cheap internal pins.
Physics, okay.
Yeah, a bump key is a specially cut key where all the ridges are cut to the absolute maximum depth. A criminal inserts this key into your lock, applies slight turning pressure, and then literally strikes the back of the key with a mallet or a heavy screwdriver.
Just whacks it.
Exactly. They whack it. And what happens is a transfer of kinetic energy. Think of a Newton's cradle, those swinging silver balls on an executive's desk.
Right, where you pull one back and it hits the rest.
Yes, and the energy transfers through the bottom pins and sends the top pins flying upward for just a fraction of a second. In that tiny moment, the shear line clears, the cylinder turns, and they are in. No damage to the lock, no noise of breaking glass.
That is terrifyingly simple.
What's fascinating here is how the engineering of high-security locks has evolved specifically to combat these physical impacts. The industry has spent decades developing pick-resistant and bump-resistant designs to stop exactly what I just described.
And the sources gave some specific brand examples, right?
Yes. In those cheap $12 off-the-shelf lock brands like LSDA, Kenmart, or DeGard, the manufacturers use very basic, smooth-sided pins.
Right.
Because they are perfectly smooth, they easily slide up to the shear line, making them highly susceptible to that bumping technique. But high-security locks from brands like Medeco or Multilock take a completely different approach. They use highly engineered internal components, like the mushroom pin or a spool pin.
A mushroom pin.
Yes, instead of a smooth cylinder, the top pin is machined on a lathe to look like a tiny spool or a mushroom.
Oh, I see where this is going.
Right, so if someone tries to apply tension to pick the lock or tries to bump it, the wider mushroom head catches on the edge of the shear line. It binds up the entire mechanism and completely foils those regular picking or bumping techniques.
That is wild. I was reading through the Medeco engineering specs, and the difference in durability is staggering. These high-security locks are so incredibly robust that even seasoned professional locksmiths, people who do this all day, every day,
Well,
often cannot pick them.
they really can't.
If you lose the keys to a Medeco lock, the locksmith usually has absolutely no choice but to pull out a drill and destroy it to get you in. That is how tough they are. The real takeaway for you listening is that you genuinely get what you pay for. A cheap lock is just a shortcut for a criminal.
And that perfectly transitions into the financial fallout of poor security. This is where we talk about the long-term costs of a break-in versus the upfront cost of good hardware.
Which people never weigh correctly.
Never. People often look at a standard deadbolt for $20 and then look at a high-security lock for over $100, and they think they are saving money by choosing the cheaper option. But that cheap lock might only save you $40 or $80 today, while a break-in has massive compounding long-term costs.
Which brings us to the investigative report we reviewed featuring a homeowner named Dudley.
Yes, Dudley's story is the perfect example. His home was burglarized because of substandard locks. The report detailed that he had to pay $952 just to have his house rekeyed and secured after the burglary.
$952. Just for the locks.
Just for the emergency locksmithing and new hardware, and that is strictly the aftermath cost of the door. That doesn't even factor in his stolen property, the potential property damage to the door frame from forced entry, his insurance deductibles, or the lingering psychological loss of his sense of safety.
That's devastating.
The true cost of cheap hardware is paid on the back end.
So what does this all mean? When should you actually be looking at your door and thinking, I need to upgrade this right now?
The absolute most critical time to upgrade your locks is when you are moving into a recently purchased or rented home. It is rule number 1 of residential security.
Because you genuinely never know who the former occupant gave keys to. Think about it. They could have handed them out to dog walkers, contractors, cleaning services, neighbors, ex-partners.
Anyone, really.
Exactly. If you don't upgrade the moment you move in, you are trusting the security of your family and your new home to a dozen strangers who might still have a copy of your key on their key ring.
Exactly. But it goes even deeper than previous owners. It means that the baseline security you inherit from the builder is often deeply flawed. For example, many large tract home developments utilize master keying systems during construction.
I saw that in the sources. Why do builders do that?
Convenience. When a developer is building 50 houses at once, the contractors need to get in and out of all of them. So the locks are designed so that one master key opens every single front door in the neighborhood during construction, while the individual homeowner key only opens their specific house.
Okay, that sounds convenient for the builder, but why is that a vulnerability for the homeowner once they move in?
It comes back to the shear line we talked about earlier. In a standard lock, there is one pin stack per chamber, meaning there is only one specific height that will create the shear line and open the door. But to make a master key system work, locksmiths have to drop tiny extra metal discs called master wafers into the pin chambers.
Ah, so they are adding more moving parts inside.
Precisely. And by adding those master wafers, they are artificially creating multiple shear lines within the same lock. Instead of one combination opening your door, there are now 2 or 3 or 4 different shear lines per chamber.
Wow.
And if you mathematically multiply those extra shear lines across 5 or 6 pin chambers, you suddenly have dozens, sometimes hundreds, of random key combinations that could accidentally open your front door.
That is terrifying.
It makes the lock exponentially easier to pick, easier to bump, and easier to bypass. Eliminating master keying in residential properties is a crucial first step for any new homeowner.
So the goal is to reduce the number of ways a lock can be opened. And the sources point out that moving beyond just rekeying, the optimal upgrade is shifting to restricted high-security key profiles.
Yes. With a restricted system, the key blanks aren't available at your local hardware store. Unauthorized key duplication is practically impossible. If a contractor or a dog walker tries to take your key to a kiosk to copy it, they will be denied.
They just can't do it.
Right. A legitimate locksmith legally cannot cut a copy of that key without your specific authorization card and signature.
And if we're talking about ROI, we absolutely have to talk about where the industry is heading right now, the shift towards smart locks. The 2025 tech reviews, we analyze highlight brands like Schlage, Yale, and Kwikset as major upgrades for residential security.
They really are changing the game.
Take the Schlage Encode Plus, for example. The reviewers noted it has the highest residential security grade possible. It is literally built like a tank to resist forced entry, and it features built-in alarms that sound off at ear-piercing volumes if someone even attempts to tamper with it.
The integration of technology is shifting the paradigm. That Schlage model, for instance, integrates seamlessly with Apple HomeKey, meaning you don't even need a physical key to lose or copy. You can just tap your phone or your smartwatch to open the door.
And my favorite part is the auto-locking feature. If you are rushing out the door in the morning, your hands are full of coffee and bags, and you forget to lock up, the lock secures itself behind you after a set amount of time. It entirely removes human error from the equation.
That elimination of human error is a profound upgrade in residential security. But as our homes become smarter and the hardware becomes more advanced, we also have to be significantly smarter about the professionals we hire to install and maintain these systems.
Absolutely. You know what else removes human error? Having your system installed by an actual expert. That's why we partnered with Point Locksmith for this deep dive. You can reach them anywhere in LA at 310-295-4040.
They really are top tier.
They have 5-star reviews because they are fast, reliable, and professional. Whether you need smart lock installations, emergency lockout help, or 24/7 security upgrades for your home, business, or vehicle, they are the trusted pros to call.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the urgency of finding a legitimate, trusted professional becomes startlingly clear when you look at the dark underbelly of the locksmith industry. The investigative sources detail a highly sophisticated, nationwide lead generation scam that is operating right now.
This part of the research genuinely made my blood boil. How does the scam actually work?
It operates entirely on deception. These scammers create fake Google Maps listings with heavily retouched, stolen photographs to make it look like they have a physical mom-and-pop storefront right in your neighborhood.
Right.
They advertise unrealistically low prices to bait people in, often claiming a service call is just $15 or $50 and up. When you call that local area code, you aren't talking to a neighborhood shop.
Where are you calling?
The call is secretly routed to a massive out-of-state or overseas call center. That call center then dispatches completely unlicensed, untrained subcontractors who show up to your house in unmarked personal cars.
Here's where it gets really interesting. We reviewed this wild undercover sting operation from a local news station. Imagine you're standing outside your house. It's pouring rain, your groceries are melting in the car, or maybe your kids are waiting inside. You're locked out, you frantically Google a locksmith, and you see a $15 ad.
You're the perfect target.
You are the exact vulnerable target they're waiting for. In this sting, an undercover homeowner called one of these listings and was quoted $50 over the phone. The scammer arrived in a regular sedan wearing no uniform. He took one look at her perfectly standard basic residential lock and immediately started lying.
He falsely claimed it was a commercial high-security lock, which was a complete fabrication used to justify an upcharge.
Exactly. He then made this huge dramatic show of trying to pick it. The video shows him fumbling with his tools for exactly 52 seconds, less than a minute, before throwing his hands up, claiming the lock is unpickable and telling her the only way into her own home was to destroy the perfectly good lock with a drill.
This is the core of the scam, and it operates on what is effectively double charge damage. These scammers purposely drill your lock because picking it quickly and efficiently doesn't allow them to upcharge you.
Wow.
Once they destroy the lock, they hit the homeowner with exorbitant hidden fees, sometimes up to $1,000, as seen in the reports, for the labor of drilling.
$1,000 for breaking something.
Yes. But it doesn't stop there. Now your door has a gaping hole in it, and you can't secure your home. So the scammer conveniently offers to sell you a replacement lock right out of their trunk.
Unbelievable.
They pull out a cheap $5 to $10 lock like those easily bumpable Kennard or Dugard brands we discussed earlier, and they sell it to you at a massive, massive markup.
So at the end of the night, they have completely destroyed your property, extorted you for hundreds of dollars, and left you with vastly inferior security than you started with. And again, the people being targeted are the most vulnerable. It's people in a state of panic, and these guys just waltz in and take complete advantage of that desperation.
Exactly, which is why navigating this requires a strong degree of critical thinking and preventative action from you, the consumer. You must know how to spot a legitimate professional before you are in a crisis.
So what's the tell?
Well, a highly trained, ethical locksmith will almost never immediately drill a standard functional residential lock. They have thousands of dollars invested in precision tools and years of training specifically to bypass locks non-destructively. Drilling is an absolute last resort, usually reserved for those heavy-duty Medeco-style locks that actually are pick-resistant.
What else should listeners look out for when someone shows up to unlock their door?
Verification. A real professional will always ask you for identification or proof of residence before they even attempt to touch the door.
Oh, that makes total sense.
Think about it from a liability standpoint. If someone walks up to your house with a bag of tools and is perfectly willing to unlock your front door without verifying that you actually live there, they're not a legitimate operator. They could be letting an intruder into someone else's home.
So how do you protect yourself from falling into this trap? The sources give some incredibly practical advice that everyone listening should do today. Do not wait until you are locked out of your house at midnight to start frantically Googling for a locksmith. You are literally asking to be scammed.
You really are.
You need to find a reputable local locksmith before you ever need one. Go find their actual physical storefront. Walk inside, have them do a simple, low-stakes job for you, like cutting a spare key. Check their Better Business Bureau ratings. Once you know they are legit, save your number in your phone.
That's the best strategy.
That way, when the emergency happens, you already have your trusted guy on speed dial, and you don't have to rely on a shady internet search.
This raises an important question, though. How do you navigate this landscape as the technology rapidly evolves? The industry trends for 2025 make it clear that the traditional image of a locksmith, someone just sitting in a van cutting brass keys, is becoming entirely obsolete. Locks are basically computers now. As the industry trends heavily towards smart locks, biometric scanners, and eco-friendly sustainable practices, the baseline skill set for a security professional is drastically changing.
You're not just hiring someone with a file and a pick set anymore.
Precisely. You need a locksmith who deeply understands firmware updates, who can troubleshoot wireless networking issues if your deadbolt won't connect to your Wi-Fi, and who grasps the nuances of digital encryption, not just mechanical tumblers. The security professional of tomorrow is half mechanic, half IT specialist.
It is a whole new world of security, and it requires a whole new level of professional trust. Don't wait for an emergency to find out who you can trust. Program Point Locksmith into your phone right now. That's 310-295-4040. Serving all of Los Angeles, their 5-star reviews prove they are the fast, reliable 247 pros you need for your home, business, or vehicle.
We have covered an immense amount of ground today.
We really have. We've seen exactly how cheap, smooth pins fail against even the most basic attacks, and we demystified how bumping actually works. We've uncovered the hidden vulnerabilities of master key-tracked homes and why you need to rekey immediately upon moving in.
Crucial step.
We explored the incredible long-term return on investment that comes with upgrading to heavy-duty smart locks, and most importantly, we broke down the severe danger of falling for the $15 scammer with a drill.
I want to leave you with one final thought to mull over. With the rapid rise of smart locks, your front door is no longer just a piece of wood and metal. It is now an active endpoint on a global digital network.
Oh, wow.
In the digital world, if you wouldn't trust a $10 software firewall to protect your entire life savings in your bank account, why would you ever trust a $10 mechanical lock to protect your home and your family?
That is such a powerful way to look at it. Security is an investment, not an afterthought.
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into the true value of security and peace of mind. Check your locks, save a pro's number in your phone, and we'll catch you on the next one.